The following podcast is brought to you exclusively by the Rad Rob Radio Network.
On this edition of Straight Up 5 with Johnny Petraglia Jr., we welcome back the GOAT, Belmo Jason Belmonte, to the show. It's his second time back here on the show. We are looking forward to spending another 3.5 hours with him, asking him every pertinent question anybody could ever think to ask the greatest bowler of all time. Straight Up 5 with Johnny Petraglia Jr. starts now.
This is PBA champion Kyle Troop.
Hey y'all, Jacob Electric here.
Hey guys, Chuck Ritchie here, formerly of Bowl TV.
Hey guys, this is Ryan Schaefer of track staff at Valley Bowling Center in Waverly, New York.
And you're listening to Straight Up 5 with Johnny Petraglia Jr.
Yo, the boys from Straight Up 5, Rad Rob, Dr Ocho, and of course JP Jr.
As you know, JP Jr. used to be introduced as the sexiest man in bowling, and now the world. But he doesn't have the best hair in the world. I do. Sorry, bud, but you know the deal. Pick it out. Fear the fro, baby.
Welcome to Straight Up 5 with Johnny Petraglia Jr. A hard-hitting, in-depth, cutting-edge look into the world of bowling. This podcast will not only cover all things bowling, but will also give you a raw look into real-life issues. You'll get unfettered access into the mind of one of the most gifted bowlers of this or any other generation.
Strike, and they claim it. Somebody does it!
So without further ado, let's introduce you to the hosts of the show. Rad Rob, Rob Francois. Rad Rob, Rob Francois. Dr Ocho. Dr Ocho. And the incomparable Johnny Petraglia Jr. Johnny Petraglia Jr.
Good day, everybody. Welcome back to Straight Up 5 with Johnny Petraglia Jr. This episode is number 149, and I am your host, the father of two-handed bowling, major champion on the PBA Tour. Some would even say that I'm the GOAT, Jason Belmonte. We have a very special guest for you tonight on the show, but before we get into that, let's introduce our first co-host. He is the man with 1,000 chins. Some call him Rad. I don't know if I would, but some would. The producer of the show, Rad Rob, Rob Francois.
I think Ocho dropped the wrong software and gave you the wrong intro to read. But thanks for having me here, Belmo.
Mate, no worries at all. Look, next up, we do have the man with the golden mask, the resident doctor of Straight Up 5, the house hack from Howe Lanes, Dr. Ocho.
He nailed it on my end. I don't know. I thought everything went spot on.
I give you one job, Ocho. I give you one job.
I gave him exactly what I printed up. And everything seems. I think we're going swimmingly. I say keep hitting it, man. I think we got Rob. You might be out. I don't know. You're not needed anymore.
Well, look, we aren't complete yet. Okay, we have a final man to join us, and he is the man with the marquee name to the show. He's your number one in the programs. He's number one in your hearts. He's number one in our hearts. He is the sexiest man alive, Johnny Petraglia Jr.
That is simply the greatest opening we've ever had. Glad it took us 149 episodes to get there. I think I'm finally number one in their hearts, Rob.
Yeah, he's always been saying number 7 for some reason.
Oh, listen, boys. The intro is really just about to get really good because you see, before we bring in our special guest, okay,
there's more
highlight package of who that guest is. This is when the intro really fires.
Let's go.
I'll tell you what, if this.
All right, let's welcome our very special guest, the one and only GOAT, Jason Belmonte. Hey, Belmo. Good to see you, brother.
how
Thanks
are
for
you?
being
What
here.
did this guy do?
That was a hell of a
What
highlight
did this
package, by the
freaking
way.
guy do? Unreal.
Listen, I mean, we don't need any more of a highlight package than the singular boom. I mean, if I'm really honest, I think the boom says enough.
I thought it was genius. Yeah.
It's the Tiger fist pump. That's really it's all you need.
It's iconic.
Boom.
Yeah.
How are you, fellas? You all right?
We're doing great.
We're
Thank
doing
you.
well. Thank you for being a good sport and doing that intro for me. I wanted to
And
surprise the
nailing the
guys
intro,
with it.
especially about Rob.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I don't have a neck either. I should have.
We're still looking for Rob's neck. Anybody, people, anywhere. People,
He's working
if you
on
see
it.
Rob's
He's
neck,
working on
please let us know.
I am working. I went to the
Hey,
gym today
lads,
before.
I gotta preface that chat. Look, last time we spoke, I felt like we spoke for probably like 3.5 days. Tonight, though, we don't have quite as long. So we've got till just before 6 p.m. my time, and then I actually have another thing to do, another interview to do. So whatever you need to ask, fire it away in these next 53 minutes.
Fair
Rob,
enough.
If
Fair
there's already a question in the chat, go ahead and take it because I have one that I've been thinking about.
Watch Sperone for one, and then take it.
I don't think most people know who this guy is, so no one's asking any questions yet.
I got a thing with this whole GOAT thing. By the way, anybody know where that originated from? Well, I'll tell you, because I'm not even going to give you a chance to ask. So back in 2005, 2006, just Ricky Carmichael had become the greatest motocross rider of all time. And I guess Gumerot didn't work because you can't do greatest motocross rider of all time. That's where GOAT started. So I say we do like let's use Lamb. Let's use the longest amazing male bowler. We got it. We nailed it. Ocho saved the day again. The Lamb.
The Lamb.
You don't shy away from calling yourself possibly the greatest bowler of all time when it's all said and done.
No, I don't ever, Rob.
Some people would say that's cocky, but I think it's confidence. What,
Not me. Never mind.
What's your take, Jason, on why you say that? Do you do it to just rifle people up, or you actually believe it?
Well, hold on. I said it because it was in the script. You
wrote it in, Rob. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
No. I'm saying isn't there like a bio? There's a bio somewhere. Where
Hold on. Everything I said in that opening was written by you. Okay, so I was just being a good sport and read everything out. But I actually don't know. Look, if I'm really honest about the greatest of all time, I think there's a couple of different ways you can look at it. The first is you could look at it potentially statistically, right? You could just say, well, in the span of a career, this person against everyone else who's ever done this thing has done it better. But I also feel like the other way to look at it is it's impossible to truly define who is the greatest of all time because we didn't compete against each other, right? We're all in different generations. And so I think I kind of use the phrase more like greatest of the generation. That's kind of like if I were to be asked, and I definitely think I make a great case for me to say that of my generation, I'm in that conversation. Of all time, then you have to look statistically, and now you start bringing into, how much is a major championship worth to a regular title? Walter has the most titles, but I have the most majors. Is it win percentages? Is it, who knows how you want to look at it?
You aren't even done yet either. That's true. Let's remember that.
Yeah, but I mean, Walter in his prime versus me in my prime versus Earl in Earl's prime. It's impossible to. I mean, all you're going to do is whoever is whoever you grew up watching, you're probably leaning towards that. Now, you may say things like, "I've never seen someone do to a bowling ball what you do or what I do," but that doesn't equate necessarily that I would still beat Walter in his prime. Who knows? So greatest of a generation, I think I'll leave it at that. But I hope one day to put statistics up that says, well, if you want to argue of all time, okay, it's, my numbers can speak for themselves and then let everyone else make that decision up.
But even when you read that, you read it humbly too, because you were like, some people might say, you didn't say you did exactly what you were supposed to, and Rob still had to go twist it.
Well,
I didn't twist it on his Instagram bio. In fairness, and maybe he didn't write it, maybe somebody else did. It says the goal is to become the GOAT by the time it's all over, which is
okay.
Right?
He didn't declare
that's a big
himself.
difference than hold on.
Okay, fuck off. I was just trying to
Name on the marquee, right?
See what happens
for YouTube.
next.
Hey, shut up for a second. I'm going to talk for a minute now. Thank you very much. I want to add to that real quick. Because I actually just watched this about Scottie Pippen talking about Michael Jordan and saying the difference between Michael Jordan and LeBron James is Michael never talked about being the greatest. He just knew he was from everybody saying it or everybody bringing up his name in the conversation to begin with.
That's fair.
And I've known Jason for going on 17, 18 years now, and I've never heard him say that. The only thing I've ever seen him do that even remotely suggested is when that guy was giving you crap on the internet.
He trolled him, yeah.
here's my 7 Player of the Year trophies or whatever you did, basically to say, where are your 7? But my question to add to that, and this is the question I was thinking about, Jason, for the last couple days or so, is I think you're in your 17th full year on the PBA Tour. What changes are you noticing mentally, physically, and as far as lane play as these years progress, because you've been so dominant out here since your inception?
Yeah, it's a good question, mate. It's a hard one to answer too, because, when it comes to lane play and the way that our lanes are oiled and their formats, I think the players have very little, if any, say in what happens. I mean, I do know that for a long period of time, there's a substantial amount of players will complain about the lanes, but that is going to be that way forever because there's only ever one champion. And so there are 99.9% losers who are going to complain the lanes weren't the way that they want them. And so I don't really necessarily think, the PBA takes too much into that because there is no pattern in which the field will be happy. None. There's no league pattern. There's no PBA pattern. There's only one champion. And so, there's only 5 guys that make the show. Let's just call that. Let's call the show the ultimate goal, whether you win it or not. It's, there's only 5 people that are going to get there. And so every single week, if you don't make the show, depending on your level of standard of play, it's you're not near your goal. Like if you're turning up for a check on the PBA Tour, that's what you're turning up for. Like you're literally aiming just to get a check. I think that's probably a very difficult lifestyle to lead because the checks aren't that big. And, if you don't think you can get more than a check, then you're already behind the 8 ball before you've even laced the shoes up. So I don't know. I think from that perspective, from my own mental perspective, I think it's, I've been traveling the world, spending 6 months, more than 6 months, many years, abroad since I was 16 years old, and I'm 41 now. So 25 years I've been doing this, and now I have, 4 beautiful children that are growing, all of whom are well aware of what I do for a living. It makes it hard. It makes it harder to leave. It makes it harder to I don't know, want to put the shoes on and do it. But my personality and what I care for the game, what I love about the game, it's still such a driving factor that even though I have my moments mentally, the drive and dedication and passion I have for this still warrants me accepting to leave and doing what I'm doing. So, but it's not easy, mate. I mean, all bowlers, doesn't matter what level of bowlers, if you do any type of traveling for bowler, the reward for it, for the most part, is it's a personal satisfaction. There are a few of us that can earn really nice incomes from bowling, but for most of us, it's I'm leaving something to go and do something I love, and you have to be okay with that. And if you're not okay with that, this game probably isn't the one for you.
That might eat you alive too, really. And I think the game almost needs you at this point too. I'm not blowing smoke, but it's just obviously when Jason Belmonte's on the marquee, more people are going to be interested at this point, given your legacy, given your track record. So for you, leaving is almost helping them. It sucks for your family, but you're doing the PBA a service. If I'm wrong, I guess someone tell me, but I feel like that's probably a little accurate too. It'll go on, but it probably still needs you.
Yeah, I mean, we often talk about it as storylines. That's, the fans or the commentators or even the players talk about the storyline. And for what 2012 through to 2022, that 10-year stretch there, I think a lot of people would argue that the story was pretty regular. It's pretty the same. It was like, 7 out of 10 years, this guy's got the player of the year. And we're starting to see a little bit of EJ, right? We're starting to see like it's starting to become very repetitive. And I think when you have somebody like myself, it could be considered a fun storyline where it's like, hey, he's not number one right now. What's he going to do about it? And there's a storyline there. And then the storyline on EJ's side is, I am number one and I ain't giving it up. So there's one small part of what's going on tour. And so I think I have an influence there to make, people want to watch either as a supporter of mine, like, we want him back at number one, or those that are, stern EJ fans to say, no, we want to hold you off because our boy's at the top at the moment. And then you've got guys like Anthony Simonson, you've got guys like Carl Troop, you've got guys who are trying to break into that realm, who want to be at the very top. And so you have a few different things. And then you get these new kids and these new people kind of filter in as well. And Tim Foy this year is having a phenomenal year. So there's plenty going on. But I do think, the same when, if you can remember a few years back when Norm Duke won a couple of times later in his career, it was a great story because not just because Norm won again for the 30-plus time, but because the gap before his previous win was considerable. And so now you had a beautiful story to tell. And I think, not to suggest that I'm Norm Duke in this scenario, but I think that's just where I do have my influence a little bit, is because of what I've been able to do. I've generated this potential storyline moving forward. But listen, I mean this with all respect to those, and including your dad, Johnny, like, when you retire and you leave the game of bowling, who cares? No one. Like, no one's missing, and I mean this with respect because I know I'm next up on the chopping block, right? But it's like, does anyone really talk about like, I wish Norm Duke and Pete Weber and Walter Ray were still, but like no one's really in that conversation. And you can go back further, right? Like, I wish Johnny Petraglia was still, but like, no, we had our time. They had their time. And I think fans, they understand that. And that goes for every sport, right? Like every sport where, the creme de la creme retire and move on, there's the new crop that they're now talking about. I think basketball is having a hard time figuring out who the next crop is going to be. Luckily for bowling, we have some pretty great talent and some wild personalities, and we have the ability to be a little older and still be a star. So I think we're doing okay in that world, but I'm very aware of my influence, Dr. Ocho, and I know that when I take them off, it drops dramatically because history has shown that's what happens.
But the story is still there. You said the story is still going to be there. And that's why people still talk about Johnny Petraglia. And that's why people still talk about Norm and Walter. And the story's still going to be there. I get it. You're not there doing it in person when you put the shoes on the shelf. The story will still be there, though, and people who got to live through it. People are still talking about Tiger Woods. They didn't shelf him just yet, even though, Scotty Scheffler's tearing it up. We had a 20-year run with Tiger as the guy, so, I'm telling you, and I get what you're saying, too. The drop will be significant, but the story will never leave.
Sure, yeah. I think we're probably looking at it from slightly different lenses. I hear you in the sense of, a story as in history. Yeah, I don't think I'll be forgotten in history. I'm talking about the now, right now, right? Like I'm bowling the World Series of bowling. If you can find me a single comment or post of the right now that says, I miss X player. And
all right, okay, I get it.
I think you won't find one. And it's not a bad thing. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just, reality says,
sure,
this is my time and I have a story that's happening now. It's a great little story. And so hopefully I can continue to do well. But that's what I'm saying about my influence. My influence is its most now, not 10 years from now.
No, right. No, I get it. Well, that's kind of how I started the topic anyway. But yeah, I get it. I totally get it.
I want to play moderate devil's advocate here. just simply going off base with what you're saying about other sports, like, you're right. When I watch golf now, I'm very, very interested to see how Scotty Scheffler's doing. I'm very interested to still watch how Rory is playing. I still like watching Justin Thomas. But if Tiger is playing in the tournament, the only thing I care about is watching Tiger. I don't care if he has a chance to win anymore or not. So I guess where I understand what you were saying is you're not one of the imitators of the game. You're one of the innovators. To this day, every person that hooks a bowling ball because they either watched Mark Roth or somebody told them that they watched Mark Roth. From here on moving forward, when in another 20 some odd years, 75 to 80% of bowlers are going to be two-handed or thumbless or some variety where you can manipulate more of the ball, they will always be, it was Belmo, and then the people, it's either from watching you or people telling them that they watched you. So I think personally, yes, in what you do eventually fades away. Like, I love watching my dad bowl in the 70s, but I would never want to throw it like that today. I really, really love watching Jason Couch throw it in the late 90s, early 2000s, and I still wish I threw it like that today, back then, but not so much the way he throws it now. But it's, for me, it's kind of all those other little things that kind of add to the equation, because you're iconic in the sense that you spawned an entire generation the way that Tiger Woods did for the sport of golf, the way that, Michael Jordan did for basketball. And even to this.
But Johnny, you're saying something that I am saying, but also you've just given it a little bit of a twist to change the path. You mentioned Tiger Woods and that when he plays, he's all that's on your mind, but he's playing, right? And you mentioned earlier in the sentence, when he's not playing, you're interested in Scotty Scheffler and you're interested in other players. And that's my point. Tiger comes back to play. There's the story.
Like okay? You brought
up.
So now he's back. But in 5 years' time, the story isn't what's Tiger Woods doing today, right? No one cares what he's doing today. It's, I remember Tiger Woods and I remember these highlights and I remember watching him and he was amazing. But when you're in the middle of a competition, the focus is now on the who is right there, right now. And and that's what I mean by no disrespect to even your father, right? Like, totally. No one's watching this tournament going, where's Johnny Petraglia's name, right? Like, he's not thought of. Now, if he were to enter the World Series of Bowling, all of a sudden now the story's brought back to life a little bit and people are interested and cheer for him and hope he does well. And if I'm honest, there are probably a few tournaments this year and in previous years he probably would have made a show. So, I think that's what I'm trying to understand and portray is like, I know my window of influence is while I'm competing. That's when I'm going ahead. Now, Jordan is a little bit different, because it's culture now. It's clothing. He's relevant in people's mouths for more than just bouncing the basketball. Like, it's so much more than that. True. Am I trying to build something like that? Sure, but I'm not there yet. And I don't think I would be if I retired tomorrow. But yeah, I definitely do want the ability to, leave the game knowing that, as you said, will be remembered. But I also know when I leave the game, I'll also be forgotten. So it's one of those very delicate things you have to tread lightly on, because you don't want to sound like you're in. I don't want to sound mean to the ones that have come and done it before us, because I respect them so much and appreciate what they've built and what they have accomplished and what they laid a platform for me to do. And I'm going to do the same thing to the generation behind me. I'm just making the point that I would like it to be relevant forever, but that's just not how it is in any game. Roger Federer retired from tennis, right? Like, we aren't talking about what Roger's doing today. Like, where is he? Who knows? He's probably on a yacht somewhere enjoying his life. But my point is if he came back to play as a wild card in some tournament, the story would be huge. But it's only because he came back, not because he's still Roger Federer and we all want to know what he's up to. No one cares. We care about the now. That's how it's always been. It's how it always will be.
That's a great point.
That silhouette going. I think the silhouette's a start.
Sure.
Everybody knows
Well,
it
where
too.
do you think I stole the idea from?
Jordan,
Okay.
obviously.
Right.
Yeah.
Jordan with the dunk, I assume.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's a great point because, I consider Barry Sanders to be the greatest running back of all time. And, he left the sport when he probably still had some years left. And, a lot of his records still haven't been broken. But how many times do you hear him mentioned on a weekly NFL, show? It's just, you're right.
He and one other person have averaged over 5 yards a carry in the history of NFL. Him and Jim Brown's the only guys that ever averaged over 5 yards a carry. But yeah, you know what? Belmo's nailing this whole thing. I don't even think we're needed. Belmo, you just talk about whatever you want.
I just had a weird observation, and it would be, I don't think many people would actually assume this of you, Ocho, but if I was on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, some weird trivia show with obscure facts across a wide range of things, I kind of feel like you would be my call a friend. Like,
I'm the king of useless knowledge. That's you just nailed it. You summed me up in 3 minutes, 8 minutes of talking. That's it.
I think so.
That's a fantastic point. He does have so much.
We're gonna put that on a T-shirt.
Yeah, I'm waiting for him to just come out with some like, hey, do you know why paper exists? Like, let me tell you the story behind paper. Like,
Don't ask him. He probably knows.
I'll give me 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Jason, if
He'll
this
tell you
bowling,
when a tree's
I
made from before the
left
paper.
my mark. I'm good.
yeah, if this bowling thing doesn't work out, you're perfect for broadcasting, Belmo.
yeah,
Really.
no interest in that for me, unfortunately.
You were good though when you did when you do commentary. You are very interesting, very very fun.
No,
and
you were so
entertaining to watch.
natural, really, is what it was. Like, you were
Yeah.
supernatural.
You
at
are
it.
natural.
What you do is you paint the picture. You
Yeah,
paint the picture for
I
the
enjoy it. I love to do it. I have a really good time doing it. But in order for me to do it, I have to be on American soil. And
Sure.
so
Oh,
if I'm
that's
going to
true.
be on American soil and it's going to be my job, it's going to be bowling because that's what I love.
Yeah,
I enjoy commentating. I don't love it. It's not my passion. What I want to do is bowl. So if I'm here, that's what I'm doing. I'm bowling, or I'm working for the companies in bowling that hire me. But to leave Australia to film other people bowling on the tour that I want to be bowling on, I think that's a hard pill for me to swallow week to week. It's fun every now and then, and I hope I am able to bring a different perspective and a different sound and a different voice. But yeah, week to week, I mean, I would have to get paid an exorbitant amount of money to
Right,
want to do it.
like Tom Brady
That's
money.
the part that nobody even thinks about. Like, you're leaving your family across the freaking world.
Literally the other side of the world.
We're still on our couch. We're on the same couch we've been on the whole time. Oh, Belmo's on our TV. That's fun. You know what I mean? We don't take any consideration into all the other factors of being away from your family for God knows how long. So yeah, I mean, it's hard enough to do something you already love, your passion, and that breaks you down. You're saying to leave your family for that long. Your kids are growing up, so. Man, that's I don't get it because I've never been in that situation. Wouldn't even insult you to say it.
If you look at my career, it would be difficult to know, but specifically, but if there's a break in which during the season I get an opportunity to go home, my success rate after that period of time at home is it has to be 10x.
Wow.
My success of when I've been out here for a really long time. And I think, I try to I don't complain about it because this is a choice that I've had to make, right? Like, I'm Australian. I could have moved to the United States if I wanted to and bring my family here, or we could have talked about it, but I chose not to do it. So it can no longer really be an excuse. But I do, and that's probably the thing I envy most about the Americans is when the tournament is either cut short or there is 2 or 3 days off. Like, the jealousy I have and the envy of them going back to their homes to see friends, family, kind of get that little bit of a recharge, where for me, I'm trying to plan business. I'm trying to plan something so those days are not wasted in a hotel room doing nothing. And I miss that connection because ultimately it's, for me, I can't speak for everybody, but it's a very lonely career, especially when you have as much success as I do. It's not the easiest to be around your competitors, and so
How
being
long do
able
you need
to
usually?
recharge is huge for me.
How long do you need? Is 2 weeks enough, especially with time acclimation, things like that? I mean, you gotta
12-hour difference usually.
This last trip was a 9-day trip back home. So in 9 days, I flew from Chicago all the way. That was our last stop, Chicago to home, and drove home, and then flew back to Reno within 9 days. And that was
don't
enough.
you lose a day with a flight?
Yeah, I'm saying I was home for 9 days. So
okay.
The extra day and a half.
So probably 11. Okay, so I got you. Because again, even your body, again, this is just anatomy talk here. The human frame doesn't like to have to acclimate too often because it gets out of system, it gets out of rhythm. Your people are creatures of habit, and their bodies are the same thing. They have to adjust, and there's an acclimation period. So. Just to have to do that is, again, it's a testament to what you're able to do, my man.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Well, you mentioned last year when you were on the show that you were going to be taking more time off because it is getting harder and harder to leave your family. And
eventually, I think I said I would eventually take more time off. Yeah.
But like you said, when you did have a break, you obviously did it this year, and you've come back completely strong. I mean, you won the doubles with Bill O'Neill. And now you're just killing it at the World Series. Like, was that just a great mental recharge for you? Are you seeing lanes better? Like, what's going on right now to where you're so locked in? I mean, obviously your talent, but I mean, what is it now as opposed to other years?
I mean, look, it's not as easy to quantify it very specific to one or two things. The first half of this season. Again, I think from my own standards was incredibly, incredibly low. But if you look at my finishes, right, like just outside the show for the US Open and just missing this show in some city I was in, I don't remember. So again, very, very close. But, those are the things where I think I used to be more in tune with, like, I am making this show. If I get this far, if I'm this far, then I'm on the show. Like, that's how I used to attack it. And I think because it hadn't happened for a little bit, I think it kind of just plays on you a little bit. And so being able to go home and kind of just, not that I talk about it. I don't openly bring my family into a room and tell them all this is what's going on in my head. But they also know.
Let's have communal time.
Yeah, let me lay on the couch and let me tell you all my problems. But they can sense it and they can see it, and so not that we talked about it like that so much, but it was more in this support and like almost like hey, don't forget, like, you've got us, and don't forget who you are, and don't forget how amazing you can be. Like, I think you're forgetting. And I think they were right. I think they talk about it a lot, about confidence. It takes a long time to build and you can lose it in an instant. And so I think that's kind of what had happened a little bit. It wasn't that I didn't have the confidence that I couldn't make it.
Little reassurance is all you need.
The difference was there was no question in my mind. If I was 100 pins out of the show with 4 games to go, like, in my head, I'd made it. Where now, or what I was thinking was, I may not make this show if I don't bowl well. Like, it's a very different psyche to have. And so for 16 years of my career, it was automatic in my head.
Yep.
Turned into, maybe it's not so automatic anymore. Are you getting older? I mean, everyone thinks you're washed. Are you washed?
Yeah,
you start thinking about those little things. So, going home, being able to just kind of reset the brain a little bit, and then come in here and, I mean, I think I'm smiling more and whatnot. So surely that has something to do with it too. I'm in a better headspace.
We had Amleto on last week, and he really broke down like how he approached the game mentally, not just physically, because he was always in great shape, but mentally he prepared himself for pretty much every situation. Hardly ever lost his cool. You never saw him get mad on the lanes. He just was able to train himself that, if I'm in the zone, no one's going to beat me. Have you gone through a similar process mentally?
I think naturally that's how I am.
That's exactly what Amleto said.
I don't think
success. Yeah.
I think it's very difficult to teach someone to be a certain way. Like, and I'm definitely not qualified. I'm sure you can rewire people mentally. I'm sure if you're an expert and you're trained, there are techniques that you can do some rewiring and motivate them or get them to look at life differently. I've never worked with anybody. I've never talked to anybody. I think I just woke up and this is what I want to do. And if this is what I want to do, then I'm going to give it everything I got. And if I give it everything I got, I want to be the best that's ever done it. Like, I think those things happen quite naturally for me. And so when I go into a tournament, it's like the question I get asked all the time, what's your favorite or least favorite pattern? I'm like, that is the dumbest question to ask me. As soon as I answer them, I'm immediately placing myself into a box. This is the patterns I like. Mm-hmm. These are the patterns I don't like. No, I don't care what I'm bowling on. I'm winning. Like, whether I like it or don't like it is irrelevant to me. I'm going to win it. And that's the mentality that I've had since I was, 13 years old bowling tournaments. And it's just, I don't care what's out there, and you read it, you see it all the time. People complaining and wishing the lanes were this way, or the left is doing this, or the straight guys, hook guy. I mean, Jesus, if you want to have that mentality, there's a reason why you're not doing as well. And they'll argue, yeah, but the patterns suit you more. Okay, well, if that's what you think and if that's how you perceive it to be, then you will walk into the bowling center or have already lost. Like, if that's the way, if the left has it and I don't, I can argue and say, well, I had no chance. Oh, then I lost. I lose. There's no way for me to win. I can back it up. I can be more accurate. I can have a better strategy. I can do everything I possibly can to change my result. But the one thing that I think that contributes to most of my success is my ability to believe that wherever I am on the leaderboard, if I can mathematically get there and win, I'm getting there and winning. And I've won tournaments with that mentality where I've been last place after 3-4 games. And, I've been hundreds outside the cut. I mean, this tournament a couple of years ago with 12 games to go, I think I was like 400 pins outside the cut for the show. Everyone's averaging 240, which meant I had to average 260. And I remember walking in going, I'm making the show. And not only did I make 5th, I jumped into 4th. Like, I just feel like that's not a coincidence. Like, that's someone who has a goal, who believes he can get there and just won't quit. Just won't quit.
You also put the work in, too. You can't just believe it when you suck. I mean, so there's a big line to you have already put the work in, and now it's time to just execute.
Sure, but that's part of it. Because of the work that I've put into my game,
there's the confidence.
That's right. There's the ability to know that if I need to do this, you have worked at this. Therefore, the confidence to believe in yourself. Absolutely. I can't walk onto a basketball court and just believe I'm going to dunk the ball.
Exactly.
Right?
My point. Yep.
But this
that is not what I'm saying.
This goes back to exactly what you started with, where you said in response to you too, Ocho, there's a lot of guys out there that throw the ball fantastic, throw the ball even better than you. But if they don't have it between the ears, if they're not walking in there with that confidence level, it doesn't matter how good or capable they are physically.
Oh, 100%. Dude, your dad would have seen probably more than most, but there will be bowlers that you look at physically and you say, I will never teach that to a student. There's no way I'm looking at that bowler and I would take any part of their physical game and say, oh, you need to throw it like this guy. And yet they'll be a 10-time champion, 3-time major champion. And you're like, that just goes to show you that if you've got it between the ears, then you can make a lot of things work. Maybe if his physical game or her physical game was more in tune, maybe they could have won more. Sure, maybe. But the truth of it is, your physical game is merely the tool. It's the vehicle that you're using to throw the ball. If you don't know what you're doing between the ears, or your thought processes are very, very negative, and it's very hard to get out of your own way, physically or not, how great you might throw it or your ability, it's irrelevant at that point. It's irrelevant.
That's a great point, and that's actually something that came up last week with Amleto. We played a clip of one of his wins, and
Same exact thing.
Earl Anthony was on commentary, and Amleto won the tournament. And he said in the replay, kids, you don't want to throw it like this guy. But obviously he's doing pretty well, and he's a great bowler. But
I might respectfully disagree with that comment. I mean,
right?
Technically speaking, if there is someone to copy, he may be the one to copy. But
respectfully, God rest your soul, Earl. But Jason just said you'd look at somebody and say, "I wouldn't teach anybody to throw anything like this guy." Earl, that's you for me.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
And Amlino took that personally.
One thing about his game that I would teach anybody. And man, he's one of the best ever.
I think he used illegal bowling balls. It must have been like 50 pounds or something. I don't know. It just didn't make sense.
So what's been going on the last couple of weeks to where you're having success on every pattern? Are you seeing the lanes better or what?
Look, the scoring pace is really high. It's really high. And so that in itself contributes to challenges as well. Because, I'd like to think that if it were an accuracy-based game, right, then I'm one of the most accurate players. But when you open the lane conditions up slightly, you bring in many more players that have the opportunity to now not only keep up, but to leapfrog you if they really bowl well. And so that's the challenge when the scoring pace is really high. It's more bowlers now have a chance to score high, which means it's even more valuable for you to make sure that you're throwing great shots, you're doing the right thing, and you're having your ball go through the pins. And I think, again, it's another one of those psychological things walking in. I'm not afraid if the scoring pace is high or low. I'm not afraid of it. Like, whatever it is, give it to me and let's go. I think some people walk in and they're like, this is ridiculous. This is stupid. Why are we doing this? What's wrong with these people? And I'm like, where are they on the lead? I look at their names and I'm like, you're not leading and you're not in the top 24. Like, I understand why it can be said that way. I get it, right? Because it's very difficult to take accountability for your performances when they're not great. We all want to say how great we played when we do well. Like, we want people to say it and we want to be able to say it. Like, I had a great day. I was amazing out there. But when it goes the other way, it's difficult to say I was really poor and I made some really bad decisions. There are players that do it, of course, but it's so much easier to say, the tour reps didn't help me enough, or the lane conditions are just too easy and this is ridiculous, or, I just didn't have the right bowling ball. And you may be right on any one of those things, but ultimately it's like, for my career and for EJ's career, like, it doesn't matter what you put out there. I mean, if you're doing well,
you guys are figuring it out.
You'll figure it out. So I think
those people doing it.
I think very early it was like, what kind of bowling ball shape do I want to see here in Reno? And I've had enough experience here in Reno with the GSX machines and the way the pins fall, what kind of ball rolls I want to see. For me, it's always been about that kind of skid heavy roll. It's not really the skid flip and make the ball do cartwheels. I just want to see the ball get down to the break point and then roll really heavy. It doesn't have to change direction much. It's just got to really be tumbling. And then all of a sudden now the 6-pin does its job, the light hits are carrying, and the sideboards here, you can send messengers and, all the way into the air. So I think those that saw that and recognize that have done the best this World Series. And I think I saw a thing from the PBA, like EJ's made the round of 16 for all four.
Yep.
I think there might be 3 or 4 of us that have made 3 out of 4. And then there's a few that have made 2 out of the 4. And again, this is where the experience of like, what am I doing that these core group of players aren't doing? Like, what are the differences in my game to theirs? And if you're clever enough and you're able to register that early enough, you could save your World Series. But if you were too busy complaining and weren't really paying attention, well, you're packing your bowling balls up now and driving to Detroit.
One of the guys you'll be facing here, Matt Ogle, was in the chat and said that you're shaking in your boots when you bowl him on Viper in the round of 16. Any words for your upcoming opponent?
Shaking in my boots. I mean, I don't know. I feel like I've bowled Matt in a best of 7 a couple of times. I think I've won both of those. I think the last time we saw each other on TV, Did I beat him by 100? I might have beat him by 100 at TOC, or maybe not 100, but it was a lot.
Fact checker
I'm
says
so
you're right.
glad I'm hearing this right now. I'm just stoking the fire. This is great. This is so good.
I'm not entirely sure if he has one, but listen, law of averages. I like that he's positive. We just talked about this earlier. You got to believe it. You got to believe it. Some people are delusional, but at least they believe it. That's important to them.
Matt, all of our love to you and Stacy. Hope the family's good.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's great.
I'll see you tomorrow, Matt.
He really is. He really is great. And you were right earlier about guys that are somehow figuring it out. Like Tim Foy is on a super hot streak right now, and sometimes those guys that are that close just finally figure it out.
And this is the thing I try to tell everyone that's close but hasn't had that year or that week or whatever it is. I'm like, you are a light switch away. Like you're one click away from figuring it out. And then when you do, you can get on a run. And watching Tim's little run right now, I'm loving it. First off, he's incredibly animated and very internalize it sometimes, but it also vocalizes how he's feeling. And he's very he wears these emotions on it. If he's bowling good, if he's bowling bad, if it's a good shot or if it's a bad shot. But the thing that I love most about what I'm seeing is I've seen Tim bowl for the last few years on tour, and the difference between that Tim and the Tim that I'm seeing today is there's no part of me today that is expecting the 2-4-8-10 shot. I don't expect it anymore from it. I used to, right? There'd be 3 or 4 in a row, and in the back of my mind, it would be if I was bowling a match against him, it would be stay close, be patient, it's coming. There's that one that he's just going to leak to the right. He does it all the time. Not doing that anymore, right? Or not nearly as much. And so he's figured something out. And now the ball hits the pocket one more time a game. He's got a great roll. He's got a heavy rev rate, and it's another strike on the board. So it goes from 210 to 240 real quick. Real quick. You do that across 48 games, it's no shock that Tim's bowling great this World Series as well.
Said, one click away.
Yeah. Who else do you see right now that might be on the cusp that you said, you know what, once they figure it out, they're going to be really, really dominant? Anybody come to mind?
Dominant? Not while I'm around.
I love it.
EJ is the only one that kind of slipped through the cracks a little bit, but I'm working on reeling him back in.
Who's another Tim Foy right now in your mind, or could be
or a
that
book
one click away that Tim is finding?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a really great question. I think, as a rookie, Ryan Barnes is doing really, really well. I watch him physically bowl and the way that he's able to manipulate his ball and the shot shapes he tries to create. He's not afraid to try his versatility. I think he's also someone that I've seen it a few times where, his dad has passed down the frustration gene, right? It can get to him a little bit. But I think if he's able to control that, Ryan is going to be very, very difficult to beat, and he will make I don't know if he'll make as many shows as his dad was one of the all-time greats. So I don't want to put that pressure on the kid that he's going to do as well, but he'll have a fantastic career in his own right. I think if I had to name one more person, I think someone like a Boog type, who now they're into year 2 of their run. They've had their breakout year. He's still showing glimpses of, hey, I'm still making these cuts. I still have a chance to make shows. Sometimes you get the guys that come in for a year and then you never see them again. And Boog's kind of hanging around. He's saying, I've had my year. Sure, I broke out. You know who I am. But, hey, this is another year. I'm making these cuts. I'm making these round of 16s. I'm making show. I think that says a lot about, who he is as a bowler. So, yeah, I'd look for those two a little more often on the leaderboards for sure. Trevor Roberts, I saw someone wrote a question or a comment in the chat about Trevor Roberts. I am a huge Trevor Roberts fan. I think I love the way he gets out of the ball and how he approaches the game. But I think he's also another one where it's that in between the ears, it's the let him have my confidence for a month and watch him win like a lot. Like that's hard to get when you haven't got it. So I know he's building towards that confidence. I think he believes he can make cuts. I think he believes he can do really well. Do I think he believes he can beat me at the World Series of Bowling? No. And that's the part he's got to you have to convince yourself I'm capable of doing it. And then you're halfway there. So if you're watching this, Trev, just know that I think you're capable. You just got to start thinking you are.
Jay, just real quick time check for you.
We've got a few more minutes. We're good.
Okay.
This is something I actually want to ask you earlier, and Del brought it up. Do you think tour reps should be helping? If so, should they give everyone equal help? They're almost like a coach, right? Like coaching their team members, or what do you think about the position that ball reps take?
Yeah, look, I think depending on the bowler and what kind of relationship or what, and I use this term, when I say what use they have, I mean it as in the phrase of like a tool to use, some resource. I know, for me, Timmy Mack has watched me bowl since I was 16 years old. He's probably seen my bowling ball go down the lane more than anyone else in the States, maybe the world outside of myself, right? And so when we're looking for a shot shape, he knows what I want to see. He kind of knows what I'm maybe not looking for. And Timmy will tell you too, I don't use the tour reps until I've exhausted my own philosophies. I grew up bowling on my own. I went on tour on my own. I've won a lot of tournaments on my own. And even in the tournaments where I've had help, most of that tournament was on my own. Where they are really useful for me is I'm frying out. I've tried my things. I'm not seeing it right. And then I'll come back and talk. And it's always a conversation. It's never you need to do this. It's always, this is kind of how we see it from back here. And then usually that conversation sparks an idea, either exactly what they say, which I'm more than happy to try, because if I'm lost, I'm happy to try anything. Or maybe it's actually, you know what, maybe we can do that, but instead of using a phase 2, why don't I go get an origin and move a few left? And there's always something that is born from those conversations. And so the question is, should the reps be helping? I think that's an irrelevant question because they're allowed to help.
Right.
But the question is, should they give equal help to everyone? That's where I probably would argue no, I don't think they should give help to everyone equally. There's a few reasons why. The first, there's too many players and not enough tour reps, and so if you're trying to equalize it all, that would be impossible. It would be, and in not every tournament, every game, every season do players need the tour reps equal. I think their job is, hey, I'm covering a certain amount of area here. If any of my staffers require me, then I'm there to help them. And that's how Storm does it. We break the bowling center up into thirds, and we have 3 tour reps, and they cover their own little areas. And Timmy in particular with me will kind of wander around a little bit and follow me just to keep an eye and see what's going on. And that probably doesn't happen to everyone because he just doesn't have the capability to do that for everyone. I also think it's, there's a lot of things that I've done for Storm and in my travels and my commitment to grow the company, and it's an exposure. It's a reward. It's, hey, you have achieved so much and you have done so much and you've helped the company so much. Hey, here is a little perk. It's like an airline. You get to the highest rewards program. You get to go to the lounge, right? You get to access the plane a little earlier than everyone else. It's not hey, we want everyone to access the lounge because it's no longer a lounge. It's now just a restaurant in the airport. So I think players that maybe feel they need that resource, I can understand the frustration because yeah, they might feel like if only I had another pair of eyes. But at the same time, there's only so many mouths that they can feed at one time. And if your name is not higher enough on their list, that's what you have to change. You have to make cuts. You have to win titles. And then you will receive that reward as next time I won't have to wait or beg or cross my fingers, I'm going to get some help. They'll be offering it if you need it. And so sometimes, again, not an easy thing to say to someone that needs the help but doesn't have it. But the reality is that's what it takes. They don't give me the help because I'm a nice guy. Like, they give me help because they know I'm going to win the tournament. Like,
Exactly.
That's why they're there. You know,
I also think it's relevant to pole position. I mean, Chuck Gardner, when he was repping for Brunswick, I mean, I remember the year that you lost to Brian Zeisig. I actually finished 11th that week. Chuck Gardner was behind me every step of the way from the TQR through the entire tournament because I was always in the hunt. And then come a year later, I'm bowling the U.S. Open at Carolier, and I'm 300 under. I never saw Chuck. Why would I see Chuck at that point? I'm not going to make the top 24. He's got to help the guys that are going to make the top 24, the guys that get to the show, the guys that sell the bowling balls also. I mean, that's also
a lot of people take it very personally because we do create relationships with our tour reps. Like I said, Timmy and I have known each other since I was 16. There's a very deep friendship there. But when we walk into the bowling center, he is as professional as they come. I am as professional as it comes. If he's required because the leader of the tournament needs him, I'm not pulling on his shirt saying, F that guy. You're my friend. Stay here and spend your time on me. I'm coming 17th with no way to make the show. Like, that's not how I work. It's not how I expect Timmy or the tour reps to work. But I do think there are players that create those relationships and they do get a little personal with it. They do get he's always behind these people and he's never behind me. I take him to dinner. We've known each other for 20 years and he's still, yeah, again, if you're in that, like you were, Johnny, at the plastic ball tournament, if you're close and you have a chance, makes sense why your tour rep is going to be like, hey, I just checked your next pair, right? I checked it for you. You're coming last? It doesn't matter what your next pair is doing.
Buddy, I'll be back later, if even that, which is all it's warranted. And I, like you just said, Jace, I can count several players who I've actually heard say to me out loud that very thing you just said about, no, he's too busy with this player instead of me. He's never got time for me. You hear it all the time. And it's like, come on, guys, you kind of have to understand the position in this exact moment right now. Have a little leniency. All right, let's go. Sorry, Rob. I keep looking at the clock. Go ahead, but.
All right, apparently someone just sent me a message and said they got 5 minutes. So somebody had mentioned on the other side of tour reps, what if every bowler had a caddy that could obviously carry their equipment around and give them advice to how they see the lanes? Do you think that could be something that would be implemented in the future?
Oh my, you have no idea how many times I have tried to implement the idea of, hey, can we not just hire our own caddies? Now, could I afford it? Probably, right? I could probably pay someone to spend 5 months of the year doing everything that you said, like from the nitty-gritty carrying bowling balls, let me tell you, when there's 21 bowling balls that you're shipping or you're traveling or you're trying to get for practice and you're carrying out, it's a pain in the ass. So if you could hire someone, it's a bit princessy, right? It's a bit like, rock starry, don't get your hands dirty, but I mean, that would be amazing. The problem is, in order for someone or everyone to have a caddy, you're asking a lot of a person with the inability to pay them enough. And that's a broad sense. You're talking about, even if it was 64 guys exempt, right? Like 64 guys. You're asking that 64 of us would have $40,000 to $50,000 for the 5 months. Like you'd have to think someone would be like, plus their expenses, like, hey, I'm giving up a year's worth of work or half a year's worth of work here. Like, I got to get paid or a commission. Like, it's hard to sell someone in that position on a commission in bowling. Like, you know, I've won tournaments for $20,000. Like, how much am I giving up? $2,000, like 10%? Is it more than that? Well, now I got to make money. Like, I got to feed my family too, right? Like, so it can't be 50-50. It can't be, but it might have to be on there. And so I think it's just the pay discrepancy makes it really difficult. But if you had the money in your own pocket already and you just wanted to do it, I'm a huge component of that. I think that's the ultimate, because then here is something that most of you may not know watching about tour reps. And this is where I choose my words very carefully when I'm talking to tour reps, because it is a very slippery slope. Their job is to get you and everyone else on our staff to win the title. If I'm bowling on 7 and 8 and I'm coming, let's say I'm a few pins in or out of the show, let's just say hypothetically, and I catch a pair and I'm like, whoa, lane seven for me is like 10 tighter. Like, it is unbelievably tight. And I communicate that to my tour rep, and then I finish the game shooting 197 and I bail it out, and I'm like, whew, that was a really tough pair. And then my staffer friend, my competitor, comes over and says, hey, Timmy, what's going on with 7 and 8? Now, the tour rep has a very moral, complicated response.
Sure.
Do I tell them lane 7 is 10 tighter because Belmo gave me information and I trust what he says? Therefore, I know this information, so I should tell my staffer this, but I, the player, don't want that information going to my competitors. Why would I want that information been shared? I don't want my competitors to know there's a tricky pair and to maybe get a 2 or 3 frame head start on me from that pair. So it's a very tricky thing about working with tour reps in the way that we do it. Now, a caddy, you don't have to worry about that information spread. You're talking to them. You're creating strategy. They're looking like a caddy with a green slope. They're looking at your next pairs. No one's telling them anything. You're creating that information bubble, and you can openly talk. You can openly say what you want to, because you know the information is not getting dispersed across an entire field. And I often will tell the tour rep, as soon as they start a sentence with, Kyle had, I say, no, I don't want to know what Kyle had. I don't want to know what Kyle did. Give me information, but don't tell me what anyone did. So I'm okay to tell them the left lane's hooking more for me. I'm okay, because that's the kind of information I'm expecting. I go to the next pair. Hey, is this pair doing anything funky? Yeah, the left lane's hooking more. Cool. Thank you very much. Yeah. But I don't need to know Kyle Troop balled down to this and moved 15 left and slowed his speed.
do.
You know, I think that's truly unfair. I think that's unfair for Kyle. Like, he's sharing that information because he's trying to build a strategy to move forward. And
I never thought about it that way.
And then all of that strategy is just passed on to the next staff that hits that pair. Like, that sucks, man. So when I communicate with Timmy, because it's professional. Like, we're not friends. Oh, we are friends, but we're not talking to each other as two mates in the bar right now. We're talking to each other as athlete and resource and tour rep. So when he asks me what I'm seeing, I'll tell him, I feel like my ball's reading the front a little sooner than I would like. I feel like the right lane is just, doesn't quite have the same pop as the left lane. And I'm okay to say that, knowing it's going to get passed on, because the next pair I go to, that's what I want to hear. Anyway, I think that's really important for people to know, how it goes with tour reps. I do not envy them at all. It is a thankless job, and they should be thanked every set, no matter how you bowl. And they just aren't, because there's only one champion. There's only one guy or 2 guys that bowl really well, right? Everyone else is chasing those 2 guys. So there's always something you could have done better. Tour reps didn't get me in the right ball soon enough. Tour reps this, tour reps that. I mean, brutal, right? Brutal. And then when you do win, for the most part, I'm great, the bowler. I know what I'm doing, and I threw it amazing. Super. Oh, thanks to the tour reps. Appreciate your help. that's all they might get. Like, there's no true value shown.
Yeah, it's almost like being an umpire in the major leagues. It's either nice game, Blue, or you did everything absolutely completely wrong, and we're going to not let you sleep over it for the next year.
Exactly.
It's also like crew chiefs in NASCAR.
Oh, sure.
It's still an individual sport because there's individual drivers, but you're still part of a team. Like I'm part of Hendrick Motorsports, but crew chiefs don't want to tell their teammates what's going on or what they see. There's a lot of similarities, I think, between the two.
Yeah. So it's a tricky thing, but honestly, the guys out touring reps, I think they do a remarkable job at handling and juggling the amount of players they have to deal with, the amount of personalities they have to deal with, the amount of emotions that are coming out of the players at any given time. It's like, it is a critically difficult job. And like I said, they're only making one or two guys happy, right? So it's important to remember that as a player out there that's expecting tour rep help, you're going to bitch and moan about them for 99.9% of the events you play because you're not going to win them all.
Right. That's fantastic insight.
As usual, you bring not only a wealth of knowledge, but many, many things that make not only us, but all of our listeners think about the game a little bit differently and go into it with a slightly different mindset. And as you can tell by the comments, it's always an absolute honor and pleasure and very, very humbling when you're here to get all of this information from one of the best to ever do it. And certainly,
I appreciate it, boys. Thanks for having me on. Next time we do this, I want to be your number 300th. All right, save number 300 for me.
Okay.
Do you reckon you can double this so you can get there?
Sure, it'll take a few years, but yeah, we'll get there.
Because that just buys him some time. He's like, I'm not doing this shit for another year and a half now. That's fine.
Ocho, I'm hoping by the time I'm your 300th guest, you've washed that fucking mask of yours.
What mask are you talking about? These are real biceps.
Hey, should I tell everybody what I saw?
How handsome he said I was? Tell him.
Should I tell everybody? I know what he looks like, everyone. I know what Ocho looks like.
And he didn't stick forks in his eyes.
The mask is a much better sight. Okay?
What mask? That's like the fourth time we got Belmo to say fuck.
Thanks, buddy. We appreciate it.
You got to appreciate it, boys, too. Thanks for watching,
buddy.
everyone.
All right.
See you when I see you.
See you guys. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the best bowlers of all time.
That was the fourth time we got him to say fuck.
In my opinion, he's the GOAT, but always a pleasure. Jason Belmonte, everybody. Class act all the way. Such a wealth of knowledge. He's so smart. And again, we learned something new. Like his explanations about the tour reps and caddies and all that was spot on. It was fantastic.
I liked everything he had. I really like what he talked about as far as relevance in the game until you're not, and then you can be relevant in the same way.
Yeah.
But completely differently. That whole thing, when I tried to argue his point and say that you're an innovator, not an imitator, that everybody that's watched you is the reason they're two-handed, then that was almost proved his point, because that's what he was talking about. If he leaves and he comes back in 3 years, then everybody not necessarily will stop watching EJ and Kyle and Simo, but they're gonna focus on him.
Oh, hell yeah.
He's got that perspective, so it's almost like he kind of put us in our place, oh shit, why would we know that? You're the guy living it right now. That's the other thing. It's well, we're on our couch the whole time.
1,000%. No, 1,000%. That was he's amazing. And I came up with the idea a few days ago of him to do the intro, and I just emailed him and ran it by him. I'm like, you don't have to, but I mean, it would be pretty funny, and no one else is doing it. Obviously, that'd be a first time.
The greatest part of the show.
That was awesome. Yeah.
And he was
and he didn't butcher it like you do, Rob.
No, he did a better job.
You should have had him say oh, I fucked it up again. What am I doing? I suck. Like you do every fucking show.
It's true. No, he did a great job. Like I said, if the bowling thing doesn't work out, he could always be a broadcaster because he is a natural.
I was going to say, and remember, Rob understands how you feel, flying across the country away from your family, because he does a podcast, and that gets him away from his family, like he said on the last show.
The one thing we haven't asked him, at least I do, is in certain parts of the country, there's people who are rock stars because of bowling. when you go to Japan, like any of the PBA bowlers go to Japan, they're considered rock stars there, or at least they were. I hope it's still the same. They get treated like royalty. But like, for instance, Shaolin Zulkifli is one of the best female bowlers I've ever seen bowl. And she's basically the queen of Malaysia when it comes to bowling. She's on Nike billboards. She's on all sorts of stuff. I wonder if Belmo is huge.
Like royalty somewhere.
Like if he's royalty in Australia.
Right.
Or in South Wales or in Orange or wherever he is geographically on that continent. I want to know, like, let's say he did want to do commentary. Why couldn't he commentate Aussie bowling? Like, and be there with his family. And, you know, like Randy, he flies out the day before the finals and then he studies and then he's there for one day or whatever. That's if it's something he even wants to do, which it certainly sounds like he does for fun. And then again, why would you want to be in that environment knowing you can no longer do it again? And that one also hit me hard. Like, it would be hard, even if I were to get, like, obviously I would take the gig on ESPN. I would love to be commentating these guys everywhere, or Fox or whatever it is. Not ESPN.
Sure.
I would love to be doing it, but there would be a part of me that says, like, man, if I had just changed my habits over the previous 20 years, I should be out there. I still got game. I still got one of the most beautiful physical games. That's coming from everybody else telling me. I feel like getting to the line, but people tell me I got a beautiful game. I know I got good fundamentals. That would crush me to an extent.
You look great. No, Martha's putting out a lot of your videos lately, which thankful she is because we get to see you bowl. But no, everybody loves watching you bowl. And people even said when your son was in it, you were one of the most beautiful things on the lane. Well, I mean, obviously because you're beautiful itself. But
I still hear that to this day. People still tell me to take my thumb out or put my thumb back in the ball, and it's one of these days I'll film like a junior legend video of me throwing comparative shots and see if it still looks good.
Nice. That's awesome.
In the meantime, nice quick show tonight. You know, the folks.
Well, we're almost done. Done. I do, Nico. I do have an imbecile of the week. I promised it last week, and this one's going to fire you up. So we're going to get hopefully unfettered Johnny tonight. But let's roll the tape.
It's time for everybody's favorite segment.
If you guys don't know how to use a seatbelt, just ring your call button and Tommy will come back there and hit you on the head with a tack hammer.
You know, Lloyd, just when I think you couldn't possibly be any dumber.
Here's the imbecile of the week.
Some people are really stupid.
All right, boys. This imbecile of the week comes from the New England Bowling page on Facebook. It is somebody that I don't know if Ocho knows who this person is, but Mr. Johnny knows exactly who this is. I got a quick little snippet of one of the greatest amateur bowlers of all time, Mikey Lickstein.
There you go, Mikey.
Just bowling 300, one of his probably like 600 300s he's thrown, whether it's sanctioned or not. And as I mentioned last week, some of the comments were brutal, and I have quite a few. So let's try to run through these quickly, and Johnny, you can give your take kind of whenever you need to or at the end. But there's a lot I want to throw up here because people are just and look. Let me preface this by saying the majority. How do you guys say that in Jersey? Majority.
In Jersey, we say majority.
Majority. And then when you went to Vegas, you said majority.
When I say majority in Vegas, they say, "What is that word?" I've never heard that word.
It means majority, but it's pronounced correctly, you dummy.
The majority of people, I can't even say it.
There you go. You're nailing it. Sounds normal.
The majority of people
sounds like you have a neck.
Knew who Litch was, and everyone said, "Hey, Haas, way to go, Mop! Great game, blah blah blah." And people that know Mikey, they know he's a legend. As you prefaced last week, many times in the whole high roller in Vegas and all that. But anyway, here's what some of the retards had to say about watching that.
I don't think I could use that word anymore, but that's all right.
Oh yeah, sorry. One of the Ochos.
We call it Rob's. We call it Rob's neck.
Eric Eubank says talentless hack.
I think that might be a joke. I'm pretty sure I know that name.
Okay, that's fair. Ron Selesky says gayest of all time.
I think I know him too, so that I'm going to give Ron the benefit of the doubt. I think that's a pass.
Well, that's good. We can filter some of
If Del Picard is still in the chat, he can vouch for me.
Aaron Gerber says guy has a seizure during his approach shots and casually walks off at 300.
I don't disagree with that.
Mike Stevenson says, does anyone have the non-edited video where he doesn't have all the weird herky-jerky motions?
Okay, let's keep going.
Jeremy Lloyd says, the hell kind of bullshit is that? But then again, there's two-handers. I wish Chase was here for that. But
I love how you read that with the laugh, Rob.
Yeah, thanks. Man.
Yeah.
It's voice acting.
It sounded like Eric trying to steal the company.
Bill Al says, still not as gay as a two-hander.
He does that little weasel laugh that he does.
John Williams says, bowlers are afraid of gay people.
All right, so far, none of these are hitting me with anything imbecilic. So
okay, fair. Steve Sekakini says, these 300 shown here make bowling a joke. Let's go back to wooden lacquered lanes and see how many are bowled.
Steve probably averages 178 in league now using a ball from the lacquer era.
He probably has the best shit in the world, and he still averages 170.
Next thing you know, they're going to be putting strings on the pins.
Tracy Churchill says, tell me again how bowling is hard. Laughing, crying emoji.
Okay.
Jeez,
John Walter says, another show off and an embarrassment to the sport.
So far, he's the leader for the piece of shit.
Yeah, so this is obviously somebody who literally has no idea who he is.
Literally, yeah, that's fair.
This is also the first comment you see where there was mad and sad faces. Everyone else is given
that's a good point.
like a 1 like or a 2 likes or like nobody. So far I think everybody in here is like the New England Bowling Alliance that knows the legendary person that Mike Lickstein is and has been for like 40 something years.
Yeah, I get that.
This one is definitely the leader right here.
Okay, cool. Sean Walter, I'll put that on my list. Jimmy Waterhouse Jr. says, is he on the PBA? If not, should be because I need a good laugh here and there.
Again, it's got 1 like, and because of the page you got it from, and somebody, like one of these people probably filmed that video of him bowling it. That's what it is.
We're getting like insider info here with this one.
This is the insider info. You went to the New England page where Litchie is royalty.
True.
And everybody knows he's one of the kindest, gentlest, most warm-hearted men on the planet.
We'll save that for the end. John Umberto Molina says, Duke can definitely bowl, but man, does he look horrible doing it.
See, this is a perfectly fine statement by me, according to me here. This is perfectly fine.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Ryan Ransom says, that was gayer than RuPaul.
I don't know what all the gay comments are about.
Seriously.
Nobody's making faces about it, so it's got to be.
Did he blow a guy and didn't tell somebody, or like someone found out? Like if it's only one guy, I don't think that makes you gay either.
No.
Next one, please.
Ayn Lawler says, wrong strile, dude, but whatever works.
I wish somebody would have written back wrong spelling, dude.
Wrong spelling, yeah.
Right?
He bowls better than you spell.
Oh, we're calling him out here. So David Hubble says, this proves that anyone can get a 300.
Don't say that, because that's not fair.
All right, we'll leave him alone because, again, ignorance.
Because Ocho doesn't have one yet.
Me either. Yeah. Okay. John Coulter Sr., worst approach I ever seen, but it worked.
Yeah, it does.
His grammar don't.
Jay Trent, he bowls like a liberal.
Rob probably liked that comment.
Rob loves that comment.
Because I don't know how a liberal bowls.
I was going to say, how do you know? Like, I don't know how Nicky D bowls, but, I mean, he's a liberal. I wouldn't say, like, oh, when Nicky bowls, he looks like a fucking liberal. Like, New Englanders are just assholes. Can we agree that New Englanders are assholes? I'm from Connecticut. So,
New Englanders don't sugarcoat shit.
No, they don't. Todd Warizniak, say that 5 times fast. And this is how we know bowling is not a sport. Rolling eyes emoji.
Okay. Well, basically, I guess, Rob, you could rattle these off all night long, but the general consensus here is there are unorthodox games across the board in every single sport. I mean, who is criticized more than Jason Belmonte when he first came out for throwing it with 2 hands, even to this day? 20-something, I mean, going on his 17th full year on the PBA tour, and people are still bitching about the way he throws it, saying it's gay, it's this, it's not bowling, it's cheating, it's yada, 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 yada.
Yep.
And the truth of the matter is if you don't understand the sport of bowling, you never will. That's horrible, Alfred Smith. Funny.
That's terrible.
Horrible. That is horrible. Oh, my.
I'm just
that approach has a touch of the tism. Come on, guys. What the?
It's the most flamboyant disabled way to bowl, but if it works, it works.
Damn it! Was a damn it.
Awkward. Goofball bowler, awesome, but do it next time without all the drama. Doesn't deserve a 300 with that stupid approach. People didn't like that one.
Here's a sad face. All right.
I'll never bowl again, so help me God. Apparently, he's getting people to lead the sport. If he can shoot a 300, this Mike.
Well, I'll tell you what. I guarantee you, Mike has heard all of this a million times over throughout his entire bowl, and all he's done is listen to great '80s metal and late '70s metal, and win every tournament he enters, shake everybody's hand, and be kind as humanly possible to everybody.
Can we give this guy
a winning part that takes over it all, though? That's what
I don't know. Again, I can't.
Can we give this guy a fuck you though? Like,
yeah, I mean, like we could say fuck his comment. His comment's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, how can you call something pathetic if it works? Like, is Jim Furyk's golf swing pathetic? Are Kevin Durant's shoulders pathetic? I mean, maybe.
It's funny you say that because a lot of people were saying that Mikey looks like Charles Barkley playing golf. You've seen Chuck play, so.
Yeah, okay, but here's the thing though, Charles Barkley's not a good golfer, so it's at least it's comical.
That's true. Yeah,
and he's a public figure. He's known throughout the world. So the fact that he knows how horrible he is, and he's such a good person, also, it's okay to laugh at that because he isn't good. If Litchi was out there and like that was his first ever 300, and then these were all the comments that you were getting, then yeah, it's like I watch bowling videos that I scroll and I look at people that like are really, really terrible bowlers trying to like show off their talent, and I'll laugh at their physical games. I will.
Yeah.
But then again, it's the ignorance that comes, you know? But like, and you go watch, I mean, if you actually truly analyze Litchi's game, if you just look at him at the bottom of the swing, for his entire career, that's where everybody should be, at the bottom of the swing. Go back. That was Chris Viali. I want to see what he just had to say.
Litch is the absolute legend, and if he dedicated himself to PBA, he would be in the Hall of Fame. Yeah, absolutely. I grew up watching Litchi. I mean, he's a Bradley Bowl alum. So,
yeah, I agree totally with that. So, yeah, again, I don't really think anybody was really an imbecile in that thread, especially because I think most of those people know him. But I do think that it's, from the outsider's perspective, when you watch Litchi, he's not a guy you would teach how to get to the foul line, but he's certainly a guy that if you freeze frame at the foul line, you want your son or daughter to be exactly in that spot.
His release is perfect. Perfect.
Ever cuts one off. I mean, he gets there, he sticks the line every single time. I mean,
it's gotten more herky-jerky over the year. If you go back and watch him early, it wasn't like that. He's changed over the years. So
if you've never watched it, go turn on the PBA 1992 Beaumont Doubles, Beaumont. He's paired up on that show with Patrick Allen. When Patrick Allen used
I remember that. Yep.
And like he's a lot less herky jerky then, but he's still got that tricky third and fourth step and has to clear his hips. But the stutter and the hop in step 2 heading into 3 happened a little bit later on in his career. But it never changed him at the bottom. The bottom's always been perfect.
Literally perfect. Yeah, no. He's a great guy too. I mean, it just say what you want about his style. It's not for everybody, whatever, that's fine. But you can't deny his results. You can't deny that he's respected by anybody that knows him. And regardless of who his dad was, never ever felt like he had to be in his shoes or felt like he had a lot to prove, being the son of a great pro bowler like Larry. Was always humble. Mikey to this day is still humble. I mean, he's a great guy. But,
absolutely.
Gents, another great show. Really, really good show.
Thanks again to Belmo, as always.
Awesome.
And I'm sure we'll make it to 300 episodes, and I guess in another, 150 weeks from now, so another 3 years.
Yeah, that's 3 years from now.
Maybe we'll get him to reconsider for maybe like 225
or 2. Yeah, well, that's true. Hopefully, I spoke with your friend with Fat Boy Waffles. Sorry.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
I spoke with your buddy with Fat Boy Waffles, who we are promoting on the show. He's going to come on next week. I told him I wasn't sure how time wise what we had tonight, but we're going to have him on for a segment next week to talk about his stuff. So I'm looking forward to that. Other than that, we're going to have to cover some bowling at some point. I don't think we have a guest next week, so maybe we can get into the World Series a little bit. But,
I will be sure to catch up on what's been going on at the World Series. I haven't watched a single lick of it. I've been doing a lot of bowling myself.
Speaking of which, are you still killing it?
Still bowling very, very well, man. I'm really
Majestic. Still your
Majestic is still good, but to tell you the truth, now I'm what's so crazy is I'm separated by 4 pins from Majestic to Howell. But I walk into Majestic, I can bowl blindfolded. I walk into Howell, I have to work for it. But it's always been that way. I've had really only one sub 230 league season in the last 20 something years.
That's sick.
And that was last season at Howell, and I guess it pissed me off so much that this year I'm just subconsciously there with a vengeance. Plus, our team finished in the top 6 the first half, and we're currently in first in the second half. And then we got the Bar Trophy tournament, one of the most fun tournaments to bowl this coming weekend. And then a big team tournament. And then I got 2 more big team tournaments, the 29th and the 30th. I, due to personal issues, had to tell my wonderful and gracious USBC team I would not be able to make it to Baton Rouge this year. So I hope that they found a suitable replacement for me. I'm sure they did.
Nobody can replace you, Johnny.
That's a very tight-knit bowling community with a lot of good bowlers that are going to be just
for
fine.
Sure. Oh, let me ask you a quick follow-up to that. Would you rather have it easy, or do you enjoy the hunt? Do you enjoy the fight? Do you like figuring out the lanes? Like, what would you rather have if you had your ideal night at league?
Well, this kind of goes back to what Belmo said earlier when he was talking about at the World Series, the scores are a lot higher, so it opens up the lanes for the accurate but not as accurate 1% that's out there.
Sure.
So when I go bowl league, I'll hit spurts where I'm in dead stroke where I don't think about anything, and that's like weeks that I'll bowl 18, 840, 790, and I'm just kind of like going through the motions. I'm not thinking about anything. But there's other nights where I'm not in that frame of mind, and I feel myself working a little bit more, but the scores are still that astronomically high because they're so easy.
Right.
Now, I prefer on a league night, I like when the lanes are a little bit sloppy. I like when everybody in practice is saying, dude, are they like really tight tonight, or are they hooking a lot for you? Because then I'm hoping that that's the case for the entire league. Because at that point, I know I'm more accurate than 99% of the bowlers in every league that I bowl in.
That's when you get in brackets. Yeah.
Those are like the bracket nights where it's like, oh shit, maybe I can win a high game pot with 259 tonight.
Yep.
Maybe
I usually have the exact opposite happen.
15.
Ocho's
I'll
on
have
the
the exact opposite. They'll be like, oh man, I'm standing 10 boards left of where I know. I'm like, I'm 4 boards right. I'm going around it. I don't know. I'm piping it up.
Well, that's why you're the greatest that ever was. And Belmo just couldn't admit it tonight.
I'm the Go-O.
You're the
Speaking of Go-O, we have to go-O. So,
right.
Yeah, Go-O, man.
Fantastic show, guys. We appreciate everyone here. We had 100.
Way to plug our Twitters, Rob. Way to be. Good job. All right.
It's in the outro. It's in the outro. We get, again, Belmo brings all the girls to the yard. We had 100 strong.
It's better than yours.
He doubles our audience every time he's on, but hopefully we'll get some stragglers that hang on for the rest of the show. But
not sure what mask he's talking about.
We do have some guests coming up. Probably not next week, other than John's friend Eric with Fat Boy Waffles. We're going to get him on to talk about his stuff. Jeff Skyers is actually hooking me up with a couple people. Looking forward to that. Tim Mack will be coming up here after the World Series because he definitely wants to be on. Chris Schlemmer. We're going to have Chris Schlemmer on the show, and yeah, we're gonna. He's also working on the guy that Belmo gave props to tonight, which is Trevor Richards. Roberts. Good
to be, Rob. Good job.
Yeah.
Ridgels?
Ridgels.
Mike Rithkin from the network.
Mike Rithkin.
All right, we're done. Good night, everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight. Again, big shout out to Belmo for coming on the show.
Your test results are in, and I think she bought it.
We'll see you tomorrow. We'll pick you up in a van.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks for listening to this edition of Straight Up 5 with Johnny Petraglia Jr. You can follow the show on Twitter at Straight Up 5 Pod. Follow Johnny Jr. at JPJR07. Follow Rad Rob at Rad Rob Gaming. And follow Dr. Ocho at the Dr. Ocho. Got a question for Johnny? Send your questions to straightup5podcast@gmail.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Straight Up 5 with Johnny Petraglia Jr. Right here on the Rad Rob Radio Network.